Hello and welcome back to the Irish Mags Show, your weekly Newcastle United podcast brought to you by the Irish Mags NUFC supporters group. My name is Paul, I will be your host for today, and joining me are my usual partners in crime at this stage, lads. Not to say you're criminals or anything, although I've seen some things since my last visit to Dublin. We have, of course, Mr. Alan Williamson. Say hello, Alan.
How's it going, lads? How are we?
Good.
Good to have you back on the show, Alan, and of course, Mr. Chriso Martin.
You're not going to say hello, Chriso, because you don't want me to say.
I've removed that. I've removed that from you for the time being.
Okay. Well, cheers. Nice to see everybody.
Cheers.
I missed the warmth of being in person with you guys.
Yeah, we had a nice time last week. In case any of our listeners missed it, folks, we recorded our first ever in-person live show in the Bleecker Street Bar in Dublin last week. Available on all the usual platforms if you want to have a look back. And yeah, we had a good time. We had some guests on. We had loads of the Irish Mags in the pub. And, you know, I was going to say we had more than enough pints, but clearly not, Alan, because Chris was drinking another one on a Monday evening. So he obviously didn't have enough.
There's a problem there, I think. That's all that is.
Yeah.
I had a bad day, guys. I had a bad day.
It's been a tough day. It's a tough Monday. But it was brilliant. Obviously, the result was not exactly what we wanted after we recorded the show. But we made up for it in terms of having all of us in the pub together. And yeah, very, very many pints, but also a lot of crack to go with it. It was brilliant. This week, though, we do have a treat in store for listeners. We're returning back to normal business in terms of obviously recording in different locations, but we will have a special guest, which I'll tell you about shortly. We're going to have a little look back on the weekend's events, what transpired eventually to be an excellent result against Sheffield United, which obviously relegated them. So sorry about that, Sheffield United fans who may happen to be listening. I doubt there's many. We'll definitely be having a look into what our Irish Mags were up to for said weekend. We had a pile of lads and lasses travelling over to the game with some particular highlights, including one of us who was there at the game in St James's Park. And what we also saw was not one but two meetups in Ireland. We had a big meetup down in Quinlan's in Cork, which I know has gone down in infamy in terms of the crack that transpired. And of course, the usual one in the Bleecker Street Bar in Dublin. And following that, we're going to be joined by a very special guest in part 2 of this week's show. It is going to be Mr. Jamie Smith of themag.co.uk, which is a very well-renowned Newcastle fan site. It's obviously evolved over the years. It's been around for a long, long time. For any of you who are as old as me that may know about all things Newcastle. So we'll be picking his brain on all things Newcastle, his work with the mag. And for our spotlight topic, we might have a little chat about the best value signings in Newcastle United's recent history in the Premier League era. Because while we've had a lot of mixed signings over the years, and that's a podcast in itself for the ones that maybe didn't work out too well, I think there's a really good selection of players we'd love to talk about that actually have turned out to be really good value or bargain signings over the years, some of whom are actually still in the squad today. Right, let's dive into the weekend's events, starting with the travelling Irish Mags crew, which included our own Alan Williamson. Alan, from what I saw, a serious gang travelled over for the game in St James's Park. Always great to see Irish Mags travelling in droves. Tickets obviously being quite successful in terms of ballots for this game. And overall, I believe a calm, well-behaved, responsible trip and adventure had by everyone. Is that fair to say? Is it ever?
Who told you that?
Chriso told me this, no?
I don't believe his word out of his mouth.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, so we did really, really well for tickets. And we actually did really well for tickets in doubles and a couple of quads, which are very, very unusual to come across.
Ooh.
So we had a lot of, like myself and my partner, Emma, she was at the game. We had a lot of families get over, which I always love to see because you have dads bringing their kids and their wives. And it's exactly why we set this group up. We want to try help as many Irish Mags get to St James's Park to see games, to get the adventure. It's just exactly what we want. And we were all really, really sensible and only had 15 points before the game and then only 6 after. So look, I thought we were all really well behaved, to be honest with you.
Yeah, these early kickoffs at 3 o'clock.
Yeah,
They really cut into the drinking time.
yeah,
Don't
it
they?
does. It's disgraceful, especially when you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning for a flight, like, and you have to start
It's fair,
drinking
yeah.
at 3:30.
The hardships of being an Irish
Yeah.
mag.
It's disgraceful. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of the photos that we're going to be showing here now. So I'll start off with Graham and the infamous Irish Mags on Tour flag that will never be on tour again because it's permanently placed in the Gallowgate because of Tevin being an absolute genius. So that's the flag that'll never move. Yeah.
The cable tie guy.
Yeah. Don't tie a tie, Tevin. What does he do? He ties a tie. I was like, oh, that's there forever. So nothing we can do about that anymore.
No, never.
So quickly moving on, we have, it's actually one of the meetup picture from the meetup. Jeez, I can't speak. Picture from the meetup in Cork, which is Martin, the wonderful Mr. Paul Slaughter, and Canis, who are all together. And they look to be having a great old time. Paul Slaughter can't sit easy for a change. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah, he's definitely like bouncing in his seat with excitement of having so many lads there, which will come.
That man lives on vibrate mode for some reason. He's like a toy.
He's always out of focus in the photos.
It's mental. So just moving on, we actually have the full Cork lads meet up. So I will run through the names from what I've been sent because I don't really know very many of them. So if I get stuff wrong here, get on to Tev and send him abuse, not me. So sorry about that, lads. So we've got Paul, Mark, Dara, Brian, Martin, Tev, Vinny, Forgot, Graham, and Far Right, Forgot. And then we have John O'Byrne, John's daughter, and Canis again. So there's two people in that he said Forgot is their name. So
that's the
sorry about that, guys.
That's right.
Yeah, it's the point. It's always the point.
Yeah.
That's a great photo, especially having a very young Irish mag in there.
Yes.
But you also love to see the Jacob Murphy flag in the background as well.
Yes.
It's magnificent. Like if you look closely there, just the face, the wave. He's like, I want Jacob Murphy to stay at Newcastle for the rest of his career, just for stirring shit.
Yeah.
Totally fine with that.
So moving back to the sort of lads and lasses who were away, moving on to the next one is actually me and of a guest that we could have lined up for the next couple of weeks, and it'd be Matty from Black and White Banter, who if you watch any of the Dealing with Eddie Howe's Mags videos, which I think are genuinely some of the funniest things on Facebook or Twitter or TikTok, wherever you're watching it, Matty is comical. And he is delighted to be coming on to us in a couple of weeks. We just have to find time that suits all of us. So moving on again, we actually have myself and Emma with the newest Irish Mags flag. Has to be done, lads. Has to be done.
It's beautiful. It is beautiful.
So, and
it is.
Speaking
lovely.
of
you've travelled before together, Alan, have you?
Yeah.
I was thinking
8th game for her.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, like impressive. She's a true Geordie now at this stage of the game, so like she's no choice in the matter. But just speaking on the flag, if you notice, we have the new tricolour with the Irish Mags logo.
Yes.
But if you look behind that, you can actually see the Tyne Bridge is of a little silhouette underneath it, which I think is an absolutely fantastic flag. And that flag was designed by none other than Emma herself. Me and Tev were pinging ideas back and forth. She was like, these are both tick. This is how you do it. And we were like, we've been here for 45 minutes. She walked in for 3 seconds and she's absolutely knocked it out of the park. I was like, that's really annoying, but that's a cracker of a flag. So we went and got it made.
Krisho, I feel like we've got the wrong half of this couple on this podcast. I mean, should we have Emma on instead?
Hey, look at she's kind of like to be honest with you, Alan. I mean this in the greatest respect. I actually thought that was Amanda Stavely you were holding up the thing with really quickly. And then I went, no, that's Emma. Hang on a second. So she's copying her hairstyle, but Emma's a joy and he's a lucky man. And she should come on. Maybe it should be me and Emma on talking about Al. Give him a week off. Give him a week off.
Hurling abuse at me. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, look, at Alan, either way, she'll still probably beat Krisho at the quiz as well. So
it's not hard.
Not hard. Alan, one other thing before we move on to the next photo, I believe, even though you said she's been to St James's Park 8 times, this one was a little bit more special, Alan. Is that correct, or is my information true this time?
So it was indeed. So as we all know, I got engaged a while back. The day after I got engaged, I got in contact with the club saying I'm coming to this game as a surprise to myself for getting engaged. And I was like, can I get a shout out at halftime? Didn't hear back from them for weeks. And I mean weeks. Got an email there Wednesday of last week going, yeah, that's no problem. And I was like, lethal.
Yes.
I didn't. Myself and Emma got an absolutely wonderful shout out at halftime where they congratulated us on getting engaged, and I was like a little 5-year-old schoolgirl at Christmas waiting for Santa to come because it was great.
Was it on the screen or anything like that? Did you have to send them anything, or was it just a stadium announcer?
Just a stadium announcer. What they
Class.
actually said back to me was, if you are doing anything like that ever again and you would like to be in the program and on the screen when this is done, send in a photo. But I had just asked them to shout me out, and that's all they did. So you can't actually do it.
And it was just to get engaged again. Or,
that's it. If anyone is looking to get themselves a shout out, you have to give minimum of 4 weeks notice. There's a section on the club site where you get in contact with us. It's about happy birthdays and stuff like that, but they will listen to any request. So it's not that hard to find. If I can find it, anyone can do it, because I am technically stupid. So don't worry about that, lads.
If Chris Show ever wins a quiz, we'll get him a shout out in St. James's Park.
You guys are so funny.
This never gets old.
No, so just moving on. This is actually before the game. So we're all real sober in Rosie's. You can see myself and Emma. You can see Scott Fitzpatrick, the king of the tickets,
the infamous Scott.
Scott, we love you. Don't worry about that. We absolutely love you. So also in that photo is Graham, JR, Barry. I think Chris is in there somewhere. He was knocking about in. There's Dino hiding at the back.
Yeah,
fish impression. Yeah. I think that's everyone in it. I think I'm useless at names, so apologies if I've forgotten you. Where else are we going? Moving on again, and then we have the person who myself and Emma were actually sitting beside was Brian from the Irish Mag. So we all know
hold on,
is
this
Brian.
Hold on. Is this Brian with a Y? This is famous
Brian with a Y.
Famous Brian.
The Brian.
This is
the Brian. Ratings Brian.
Yes, and I did give out stink to him about not coming into our live show, but he said I was in Cork doing a delivery. It's not my fault, and I was like, well, fair enough.
Excuses.
It was an excuse.
Speaking of Cork, the next photo is deeply disturbing. Is that? I think that's in Cork, isn't it?
Yeah, I hope it's in Cork because it's terrifying. So we have Paul Slaughter and his cannon.
He's a loose cannon at the best of times, but this is taking the piss altogether.
Yeah.
Then Dara decided to have a go as well.
Yeah. And after that, you've Tev losing the head.
I lived in Cork and I never saw whatever's going on in that photo with Tev, which is captioned Sunderland till they die, which is fairly intense. I lived in Cork for like 3 years and I have no idea where he is with those heads, so I've clearly not done the tourist things.
Paul Slaughter knows all the ins and outs of Cork. Let's be honest about it. That man's a lunatic.
He knows his way around.
Then moving on, we have a picture from the Irish Centre. So, as again, I'm useless with names, but in this, I definitely know we have Graham and Chris on either end of the flag with the flag. Chris has managed to somehow coax me into giving him that flag for the Castle Bar meetup next week. So if you're going to the Castle Bar meetup, there will be a photo opportunity, and you will be on the pod the following week.
Nice.
And then slowly but surely moving on, we have the wonderful Fadge
and family.
But then
lovely photo,
unbelievable photo. Moving on, I just want to David Bullman's seats. He is literally sitting on the corner flag. What is the story with that for a seat? That is unbelievable. He took a picture. I was like, Jesus, you must have zoomed that photo in of Bruno. And he's like, nope. I was like, what do you mean, no?
Was he a ball boy?
I don't know.
It's that close.
You can see what the players are thinking they're going to do. I don't know what's going on. I then asked him, I was like, have you got a picture of you and Tanya together from the match? No. I was like, why would I do that? And I was like, it's just your wife. Like, I'm not getting involved in that argument. I'm just not getting involved.
Now, Alan, the first, we'll talk about the game in a bit more detail, particularly when Jamie joins us, I suppose. But the first 10 minutes of that game and that performance. No, let's go with the first 35 to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Obviously, a bit tough to take. We didn't start well. Sheffield United started like a house on fire. We couldn't cope with the two strikers up front. So, we had all these Irish mags travelling, and I'm sure that a lot of them will be listening. There's that fear when you go to a game and we concede, like at home, and you're like, it's not going to be a good day. And, after all the effort and the 3 a.m., how are you feeling after, particularly, let's say, after we've conceded and in that first half before we level things up?
Well, I was at the Luton game a couple of weeks ago when it was 4-4, and I was just thinking, I was like, I can't go to two sides that are potentially going to be relegated and not see us beat either of them.
Yeah.
I was like, it just can't happen. But
we may not have to. We may bar you from going to any more games. Alan,
that's what I was
the
thinking.
case.
I said it to her after half an hour. I was like, I don't think I'll be allowed back into St. James's at this rate. I was like, I'm not exactly the lucky charm this year. But
No.
the first 35 minutes, we were absolutely deplorable. Bar Lewis Hall and Dan Byrne, we should have been 4-0 down, 4-1 down. No, 4-0 down. We didn't even deserve our equaliser. It was totally against the run of play. We robbed that goal. Dan Byrne, Dan Byrne was outstanding at centre half, has been outstanding at centre half. Fabian Schär wasn't fit to start that game. Maybe he was fit to start the game and he pulled up instantly. He was getting, there was a long ball over the top and Cameron Archer was 3 yards behind him and ended up 4 yards in front of him. And he still danced by him after. And I'm going, well, he's just get him off. He should have been taken off after 20 minutes. He should have been taken off after 30 minutes. He wasn't. He was taken off at half time and you could clearly see there was something wrong because the minute he came off, the whole game changed. It just wasn't good enough in that first half, unfortunately. Now, come here. Murphy's ball for Isak's goal was outstanding. Isak's finished was outstanding. 2 moments of class, really. That was about it. Lewis Hall needs to be talked about for his defensive work, for his actual his work rate getting forward was one of our only attacking outputs in the first half as well. So I have to say special mention to him because we have been ones to say when you're not good enough, we'll tell you you're not good enough, but when you are good enough, we'll definitely tell you you are good enough.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree, on the Schär thing, you could see it. I don't know if he injured himself before we conceded that first goal. We kind of won back the ball down near our corner flag on that right-hand side. We kind of did a little triangle between three lads, and I think then Livramento might have played it back. And then I think it was Schär went to swing and clear it. Maybe he didn't catch the ball cleanly and he's pulled something as he's kicked it. Because it was from there that things just got a bit worse and they scored from that corner. And then there was I think it was the Cameron Archer thing, and Schär kind of put it looked like, not knowing he was injured, it looked like a kind of a lazy attempt to just throw the foot out kind of backwards. But I was like, this is not Fabian Schär that we've seen all season. And we're probably going to talk about him a little bit later in the show for other reasons. But it was a tough start. And as I said, it must have been a bit scary in the stadium. But that said, I guess there was always that part of me that said, Eddie Howe's going to give them a bollocking. And whether that comes through like what we've had before, a break in play or a player down, and we get them on the huddle on the sideline and just give them that shake that they needed. But they needed it, and they got it for sure at half time.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I think we'd equalise by then. Chris Shaw, we'll give Alan a little breather there because he's had an exciting weekend, hasn't he?
He certainly has had an exciting weekend.
Let's talk about Alexander Isak. Just that finish. We had some takes before about whether or not he's a good finisher because there was talk that he misses easy chances, but you give him the ball in that kind of area, in that space, he's so confident. And it's so much so, I don't know if you noticed, when he got the ball and he's just kind of ahead of the last defender, he's not even shot yet. He's not even barely lifted his leg. And all of the Newcastle fans behind the goal were already on their feet because they knew. And I suppose, did you feel that watching it on TV that once he had the ball there? Go.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'll echo everything that you both have said. It's one of the worst performances I've seen in at least, 3 years, maybe even since Steve Bruce. Sorry to mention him. If I say it 3 times, he might turn up on the pod. But that was
well, it's not working with Jeff Hendrick, so hopefully.
wait. We might have a surprise for everybody who listens to our pod. We might have a surprise coming. But to have. Isak's. Let me put it this way to you: the commentator had barely even said what was thinking of maybe happening, and it was already in the goal. I mean, in literally nanoseconds, he hit it. As soon as he got it, he hit it. He is deadly striker. It was kind of like Nunes, once every 28 shots. It was unbelievably incisive, just straight in. He didn't even think about it. He knew exactly where he was going to hit it. He hit it as hard as possible. No goalkeeper on earth was going to save that. And it's no wonder because Newcastle fans have now become very much accustomed to him getting anywhere near 10 yards out, 12 yards out. He's either going to score or make the goalkeeper do something. He's not really one for hitting it wide or anything like that. But it's kind of what we needed. We didn't deserve it. If you looked at the stats, Newcastle, and we'll talk about the second half, but at the end of the game, it was 20 shots to 13. Sheffield United had 12 of those shots in the first half. They should have had 3 or 4 goals. It's very, very obvious. Shar shouldn't have started. Don't get me started on Longstaff because we'll mention him later. But Longstaff, it was like Newcastle playing with 10 men. They could have put Mark Gillespie in midfield. He would have done a better job. But Isaac's strike was very positive. But we were very lucky to go in 1-1. I mean, that was super lucky to go in 1-1.
And sometimes you need a bit of that luck, right? Or it's just you have that bit of class that even when the chips are down and you're not going well, that we still have that element of class to do it. And just the last thing on Isaac. Do you think he's ever going to miss a penalty? Is that 7 in a row this season?
He is so good and so confident at them. It's unbelievable.
Cold. He's just ice cold.
Yeah, that interview they did with Anthony Gordon, they were talking about taking penalties and stuff, and Gordon was like, no, Isaac's the man. Even though I'd like to take the penalties, Isaac's the man. And you see the way he waits just to see what the goalkeeper does. Again, nanoseconds we're talking about here, and then he gets it.
It's Ivan Toney-esque, that thing where he waits for the keeper to commit himself. Even if you look at the one the other night, Fotheringham made it just ever so slightly. Yeah. And it was in the other corner, and he tried to correct himself. He couldn't. He is as cool as they come when it takes taking penalties. It's outstanding. Love it. Yeah,
and we're going to talk a little bit more about Isaac once we have Jamie joining us, because there's some talks about Isaac. A lot of talk in the last few weeks, but some particular talk that we need to discuss. 2 more things, lads, before we take a little break. One was the return of Callum Wilson. Now, obviously, he came on against Crystal Palace. It was his first few minutes since. I was trying to remember when was the last. I probably should research this. Great podcasting, lads. I was trying to remember when is the last time we saw Callum Wilson on the pitch. Was it January? Was it February? Or is it? I couldn't remember. And then maybe there was a fleeting return, and then he was gone. You know, I'm trying to remember when he got that pectoral injury as well, which still to this day baffles me that it happened. Nonetheless, he's returned and he looked sharp against Sheffield United when he came onto the field. It was lovely to see, you know, as soon as he was coming on, I was like, oh, that's Isaac gone. And as a man who captained Isaac for his FPL at the weekend, I was a bit disappointed, but naturally that didn't happen. We almost flipped to a 4-4-2, which we love to see. Yeah. And the finish from Callum Wilson, you know, for a lad who hasn't a whole lot of proper Premier League minutes, granted we were already winning and 4-1. If there's anyone you want to score who can score when we're already winning 4-1, it's Callum Wilson. Like, that's all over. But he still had a lot to do. The little dink ball from Barnes was unbelievable. It was so tasty. It removed 3 Sheffield United defenders from the game with this little dink ball. But Wilson still had a lot to do, Krisho, and then bang, top corner.
He could be our new Shola Amiobi. When he scored, I thought, I know. Wait. Give me a second, right? Give me a sec, right? No, wait. I know he's only 32, 31, 32, right? When he scored, I thought, I hope they don't sell him this summer. I know they might, but we could keep him and buy new strikers, and then have him to come on in FA Cup games, come on the last 20 minutes, and we'll get like another 3, 4, 5 years out of him. As a kind of a super sub.
I mean, it reminded me of what he is. It reminded me of him being such an instinctive finisher, right? He's taken the ball down with one foot and then smashed it with the other. That is his bread and butter of a goal, right? Even though he still had a bit to do, right? He has that confidence in his veins that he can score goals. And I was listening again. Terrible at remembering which. It might have been the True Faith pod, but they were talking about Wilson saying, you know, there's a lot of talk that we could get some money for him now, and we need that, right? And he's been at the club long enough that whatever money we would get would be considered kind of a lot of profit. But at the same time, you know, you'd have to replace him with a striker who is prepared to be second or third choice, is prepared to make cameo appearances, whereas Wilson, you know, might be quietly happy to know that he could rotate with Isaac. He's happy where he's settled in the area, and if we have Europe there, you know, what's his alternative like? Is his alternative a promoted club or a lower, you know, mid-table to lower like, I don't know. I think from his own perspective he might want to say, but
keep him here, and he won't be a starter. He might play the FA Cup or League Cup games or whatever, but as a starter, but he won't be a starter in this kind of new Newcastle Premier League team where we have all our stars. Not to say he's not a star, of course he is, but give him the 20 minutes. You know, when we might be, it might be a tough game, might be a kind of a, as they say, a Tuesday night in Stoke. We need someone like Callum Wilson to come on with a bit of, because he's very strong. I was kind of all about him being sold in the summer and getting a good, I don't know, 15 million for him or something, or maybe 10 million or something. Let's keep him. He's only 32. We could get a good, if we only played it every 20 minutes or whatever, every third or second game, we might get 3 or 4 years out of him. Keep him at the club.
Yeah.
I can't see him being happy to be a 20-minute merchant. No. He's too
I think
good
it
to be
depends on his fitness. I think it depends if he's fit, you know.
Yeah.
Because when they're both fit, we remember that time when they were both fit for like that 20 minutes earlier in the season. Yeah. They were pushing each other, and I love the thought of that. I think we'll put a pin in that, because I think we'll probably, as we come to the end of the season, we probably will have a show about kind of, you know, keep or let go, which would be interesting, and definitely fireworks as well, I'd say. The last thing I wanted to say, lads, and ask you about, and Alan, I'll come to you on this, and you know this is close to my heart. We saw 10 minutes of Alex Murphy, a Galway man coming onto the pitch, age 19. There was an element of, like, I was watching it with a couple of lads. I was away for the weekend. A load of lads who were not Newcastle fans, by the way. And I celebrated the VAR overturning that penalty like it was a goal. 'Cause I looked and I went, that would crush him to know he's come on for 10 minutes. He rarely gets an appearance. It's his second kind of cameo this season. To think that it was a mistake and that could taint, you know, that could like follow him around. But when you look back in the replay, it was a perfect challenge. It was good.
I'll be honest. I turned to Brian and to Em as like, Stonewall penalty. Can't believe Alex Murphy's given that away. I still haven't seen a replay of what actually happened, but it seemingly was clearly not a penalty.
He got the ball.
He got the ball.
So happy days. Just on him when he came on, I was delighted. I put it into the group, was throwing our flag around like an absolute lunatic until Emma slapped me in the arm, goes, "You aren't the Ivory Coast mags, turn the flag around, you dope." And I was like, sorry.
Oh, we're so lucky to have Emma.
So lucky.
And I was like, oh God, please don't tell me the camera has just panned onto me and I'm going, oh, the Ivory Coast mags. And I'm going, this lad's a moron. Yeah. Just to see him to get on a couple of minutes, he didn't look out of place as a young 19-year-old. So it's very, very hard to say.
No, it's good to see, and like it's an opportunity position. Yeah, it's an opportunity position, you know. And he is that. You know, we talked about this before. Lewis Hall is more of a, let's call him a wing back, right? Yeah. As a left-sided defender, he's not really a full back. Whereas Murphy is probably closer to the Botman Burn mold, where he's left-footed, but. You know, we talked about how Eddie Howe sometimes favours that more traditional left back that can kind of join into a back three, let's call it. So that could be working in his favour, and hopefully we'll see more of him. I did see a whisper about already they're talking about a new contract for him because he has about a year and a bit left on his deal. So that would be lovely to see as well.
Did you see Bruno go over to him? Did you see Bruno go over to him after it came through? Bruno went over to him and just kind of slapped him and kind of tapped him on the head, going, "Don't worry about it, great tackle," and then ran away. Class. But you could see it kind of picked him up. He was like, "Yeah, I'm in the right company here. I hope we get him on a good deal."
I hope so as well. And again, we'll talk about Bruno again, but I loved the War Flags display. Shout out to War Flags for the Brazil themed display.
Fantastic.
Somebody put it in the chat, I think, and I saw it on Twitter. It was like, okay, we've got the Brazilian War Flags theme. This game is just set up for a Bruno masterclass. Maybe not as masterclass as we've seen before, but to see him get on the score sheet and lift up the corner flag, that was just a moment. And we want to see more, many, many, many more of those Bruno moments for years to come.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Right. We're going to take a very short break, after which we will be joined by our very special guest, Mr. Jamie Smith from themag.co.uk, to talk through, we'll see if he was at the game actually, but we'll have a chat with him about his work with the Mag, all things Newcastle United, of course, our end of season running. We might just have a little spotlight on Newcastle's best ever, or let's say best value signings over the last kind of 25, 30 seasons. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to part 2 of the Irish Mags Show, where I'm delighted to welcome our special guest this week, making his Irish Mags Show debut. It is Mr. Jamie Smith from themag.co.uk. Great to have you here, Jamie, and welcome for your Irish Mags debut.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm waving to anybody who has visuals.
Yes, if you're watching on YouTube, he might look a little bit flushed because we believe he's just been running around on a football pitch for the last hour or so and then had to eat a very quick dinner. But we're delighted to have you here, Jamie. We appreciate the effort. Hopefully you'll feel the same in about 45 minutes time. So let's talk a little bit about you. You're looking very comfortable. You're very smiley. Obviously, we've made you feel very at home here on the Irish Magstro. So let's try and flip that on its head. We'd love to hear a bit more about yourself and in particular about the mag. So I would assume a lot of our listeners definitely will be aware of the mag. It's an incredible publication in terms of presentation, professionalism, quality of content. But just in case anyone listening is not aware of the mag, could you maybe tell us, I suppose, how it all came about, what it involves, and especially your own kind of role and involvement with the mag as well?
Yeah, it's Newcastle United's oldest fanzine. It was started in the late 1980s by a group of disillusioned supporters who were disillusioned with the ownership at that time, which is 3-4 owners ago, before Sir John Hall came in. And they started, as things were in those days, just a few printed magazines for sale in the streets to fans around the ground. And it was sold around the ground for many years. And I started buying it. I used to love buying it because it had swearing in it and funny drawings and, some wittily observed articles. And I used to love getting it. And the way I became involved myself, when I was younger, I went to the USA to coach football, and I spent 2 long summers there. And at the end of one of them, if you've ever been out to the States, they obviously get a lot of Premier League games. And Newcastle were playing. And I was working for Major League soccer camps, and they'd put you up with families who were paying to use the camps, and they'd look after you very, very well. And you had to be professional and courteous and stuff. And I watched this Newcastle game and they drew 2-2 with Liverpool, and all that professional courtesy went out the window. And Liverpool was scoring and we were equalising, and the obvious reactions were happening. And I just wrote a little bit about that whole experience and being in America in general, and sent it to the mag. And he sent us a free copy, and I thought, wait a minute, if I keep doing this, I'll keep getting free copies. And I'd always enjoyed writing, and I did English literature degree. So I just kept doing it, and that evolved into match reports and everything. And then it went online, as a lot of fanzines have. It went online alongside the main fanzine, and now it's exclusively online. And it kind of acts as a constant update. As soon as something happens, something's on there. I never put something on as soon as it happens. I'm a bit more old school. Mine tend to be opinion pieces and match reports and things. But over the years, I've done a lot of media stuff. The mag gets a couple of invites and to certain things that happen around Newcastle United. And the editor's getting on a little bit, bless him. And so I'm quite happy to go out there representing. And I've done a lot of media stuff for the mag, live on Sky Sports, and sometimes quite daunting. And it's still going strong. I think it was 1988 or 89 it started, so it'll be coming up to 40 years soon, which is incredible. My last thing was I wrote the match report for Sheffield United on Saturday. I'll be doing it for Burnley next Saturday. And then it comes to the end of the season and I have to get a little bit more creative because there's not games happening. I might try and write something about anchoring, which is a big thing to do.
Yeah.
Yes, we're actually talking about it. Yeah, we might even, if we have time, we might come back to that because it's growing legs, especially with the different news that's emerging on Sky about all this Premier League decision making. So we might come back to that.
If anyone hasn't heard that news, they might think it's some sort of malpractice, mightn't they? Something that sounds like something you'd get up to that you shouldn't, eh?
I mean, anything goes on this podcast, to be honest.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, so good.
And so, like, James, we love to talk. We love to hear origin stories on this show. And I suppose it's probably a no-brainer to talk to you about how you've become a Newcastle fan. But even like earliest memories as a fan. Now you might give away how old you are, but we've been through that. We've been through that one before. But like, we'd love to hear some of your earliest memories and like the evolution as a fan from the days gone by. Let's call them.
I love it being called origin stories. I was bitten by a radioactive magpie. It was, I guess it was just kind of the way it happens. I think I was so young that I didn't realise that you didn't have to support Newcastle. You know, everyone in my family did. I got given a shirt. I collected the sticker book, and the Newcastle players were the ones I was most looking forward to. And then somebody was kind enough to bring me along to a 0-0 draw with Derby County. I think it was 1987, 1988. I would have been about 8 years old. And, you know, it was what every 0-0 draw is. It was unspectacular. But for whatever reason, I loved it, you know. Just, I think there's that thing when you go there and you see the grass and the smells and, you know, you're growing ups that don't normally act like that, shouting and swearing and acting like Baines, and all of a sudden you think, yeah, I want a part of this. And a few weeks, months or years later, I even saw Newcastle United score a goal. And it felt like a penance. Yeah, that was a rarity back then. And it felt like a penance, you know.
We need to hear who scored the goal. Who, can you remember who scored that goal?
I think the first goal I saw, you know, I can't. I think it was probably Paul Goddard, because he was the number 9 at the time. I can definitely remember him scoring. Or Neil McDonald. First goal I saw was in an FA Cup defeat to Wimbledon, the year that Wimbledon won the cup. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
But
crazy game.
Can't remember. Yeah, brutal. But I can't remember the scorer. And I'm sure someone will catch up with me with that, or I'll get on Google afterwards. But
someone's coming for you.
Oh yeah, always. But yeah, and then it just felt like something that I do from time to time over the years. You start going with my mates, rocking up and paying to stand in the Gallagher. And then Keegan came along, and we rocked up just to pay on the gate one week, and you couldn't. It was a lockout. And someone's like, "Oh, you need a season ticket now." And I was like, "What's a season ticket? You know, just it's £2.50 on the gate, man." So, you know, my dad helped us out a little bit, bless him, and I got the season ticket for the next season, which was the first season in the Premier League, and I've had it ever since.
Wow.
So yeah, what's that? 93.
It's fair to say you've seen it all, Jimmy. To be honest, especially, you know, I mean, we know in our Irish Mags group we have a really wide range of like age groups, ranging from, you know, some of the lads who remember way back in the day, even going back as probably some of the old, like we're talking about when we last won a trophy, but that's a long time ago. I'd love to hear. I'm going to ask you for a highlight, because you know I'm going to ask you for a low light then.
Yeah.
And I know this question. I know that was a challenging question for you when we were chatting about it before the recording. So maybe we'll start with the highlight to keep you smiling, and then we'd love to hear the low light, I suppose.
Yeah.
Newcastle,
and then let's bring that crashing down. So the highlight, you know, I'm kind of down on it a little bit, because I was at the Barcelona game 3-2. I was at the Man United game 5-0.
Wow.
I was at the PSG game earlier this year, but Barcelona and PSG, ultimately we didn't get out of those groups. Man United 5-0, ultimately they won the Premier League that year and we were second. I was at
bastards.
2 or 3 semi-finals that we won, but then we went on to lose the final. So I think my happiest game is probably a personal one. I think I really enjoyed winning the championship under Chris Hughton when they drew with Ipswich and they got the cup. And it felt, you know what, finally there's something to celebrate after all these years. And the Rafa Benitez one was great as well. And it was actual like end product. Yeah, you know, this has been as successful a season as it could be. My personal highlight was the first game I took my son to.
Oh, class.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
Class.
It'd only have been 4, and I was thinking, when at that age, it's a bit of a gamble, you know. Is it going to be just a big old waste of time, and he's going to cry and come home and tell his mum that daddy called a man a wanker or whatever? um, and but it turned out really well. They were playing Everton, and you might remember this game. Everton went 2-0 up, and Jordan Pickford saved the penalty. And I was sat there at half time or whatever thinking, oh, well, this is just a crash and burn, isn't it? First game he's been brought, it was an absolute nightmare. And then they turned it round. And this was under Rafa, but it was a time when, you know, Newcastle didn't come from 2 goals down. And Rondon scored, Perez equalised, and then Perez hit the winner about 5 minutes from the end.
Nice.
And this grandstand finish, it kept my son engaged, and he loved it. And I remember it forever, sort of how chuffed he was when it went to 3-2 and how much he got into it. And I was, depending on how you look at it, I was smart or lucky enough to go in and get him a season ticket at the start of the 21-22 season.
Ooh,
There was a spare seat next to us.
Wow.
And well, my view was something's on the wind here. Mike Ashley isn't taking people to court
For
to not sell the club.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised. I've just renewed it. It's £217 for a full season of that, you know, for him, for a 9-year-old. And he's in now, and I'm sure everybody knows to some extent a lad is being pulled up till they do something in the ground. And he's in there, and he's there with me and the boys every week.
Unreal.
Still loving it. Some days are difficult. He wanted to leave when West Ham went 3-1 up, and I wouldn't let him. And you know what? Maybe he's learned a valuable life lesson, eh?
He has. He sure has.
But what a game to get him to as well. You know, like
unreal.
I know that even especially a kid that age, sometimes it's hard for a kid that age to even stay the 90 minutes or last the 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, look, sometimes it's hard for some of our players to last the 90 minutes, but that's a completely different problem. But as you said, you've got a game where they overturned that 2-0 deficit. I'm sure he was literally jumping on the seat, so fair play. And I'm a little bit jealous of him being at that game.
Just really quick, I've done some research in the back really quickly. 5th round of the FA Cup, 1988. Newcastle lost 3-1 at home, and Neil MacDonald scored the goal for Newcastle.
I did say. Yeah.
And there was a Brazilian playing that day. Paul Gascoigne was playing, and Mirandini was playing.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, Neil MacDonald scored, and we lost 3-1.
I think it might be less memorable because I think Wimbledon may have been 2 up or something at the time. Like in an ideal world, your first goal is a last-minute winner, isn't it? And everyone shoots up.
Yeah.
Nice.
Classic.
Okay, I'm sorry to do this to you now, Jamie, but we do put everyone through this. The low light of your time as a Newcastle fan.
If you can pick one, that is.
Yeah.
You know what? I can, because there's one that, for me, really, really has never been beaten. And it might surprise you. I was quite young when they were relegated from the old First Division, and I was upset, but, you know, stuff bounces off you at that age. The 2 relegations from the Premier League were frustratingly avoidable, and they were disappointing. And derby defeats always take some getting over. But the very, very, very worst game for me was against Blackburn at Ewood Park in 1996. And my birthday's in March. And back then, getting away tickets as a season ticket holder, you just kind of had to ask. And I said to my parents, as my birthday present, could you get us tickets for these 2 away games? The first one's at Liverpool, which ended up 4-3. And I came out of that, obviously gutted, but thinking, we've still got a good chance of this title. We played really well. That was some game. And the next one was at Blackburn, which was about 2 weeks later. And people may not have a memory of that game, but it's burned into mine. So David Batty scored his first Newcastle goal, 82nd, 83rd minute, to put us 1-0 up. Just at the point where you're doing the sums, thinking, what does a draw mean for this? Batty clashed one in. He'd only signed from Blackburn a couple of months earlier, so that was great. And we thought, right, game over. Blackburn were kind of mid-table. They were going to win this. And they brought on a guy called Graham Fenton, who's
yes.
who's a Geordie. He's from this area. And Shearer was up front for Blackburn. And Shearer should have just stood down, but he worked hard and Fenton equalised. And literally a moment later, he scored again. And Blackburn won 2-1. And that was the game where this kind of, I think the mathematical advantage shifted from Newcastle to Man United. I think if we'd have won that game and every game from then on, we'd have had the title.
We're still in it. That's when the
and I just think, completely. And like, first of all, I had to get back from Blackburn on the supporters bus, and that was just a horrendous ordeal. It was the evening kickoff. And second of all, I just think back. If not for that game, if that had ended 1-0, David Batty, I think we win the Premier League that year. If we win the Premier League that year, I don't think Kevin Keegan necessarily walks away. I don't think Newcastle have that mental block over the years. And I think we may have won other stuff. And even if we hadn't, it would just, get that monkey off the back. It's the thing that everybody brings up when Newcastle fans, you haven't won anything for 50 years. And even that one Premier League trophy would have sort of arrested that narrative a little bit. And that team deserved something. It was such a great team. It was such a flamboyant team. And it sticks in
football is a game of moments, right? Like, football is there's just this different. Like, you can look back in a season and see many moments, but like, you're looking back years and years ago. What is literally 30 odd years ago? But like, that is actually a moment, and the Liverpool game as well. I remember watching that Liverpool game. I think I was 9, if my memory serves me right.
Was that the game McAteer broke his leg?
Was
that one?
Oh, I don't know. Don't remember that.
I think it was.
It could have been.
I think it was.
It's the famous. Well, the Liverpool one's the famous one, obviously. But it's a justified low light, Jamie. I'll put it that way, because obviously, there is plenty of low lights. Not to be negative about everything, but we are a club of ups and downs. Always have been. Roller coasters, etc. But it's incredible to just think of that moment, and like you said, what could have been, what could have happened. We've had those this season, right? I'll talk about the Tino Livramento PSG disgrace handball decision probably for the next 30 years as what could have been, especially now when you see them in the semi-final. But it's a low light that's justified, I think. And look, it's good to. Well, we hope that most of our turning points that we have going forward are positive ones rather than the negative ones. Krisho, make us feel good.
That really hurt. That really hurt. The way you expressed that, I never thought of it like that. That if we would have won that game, we probably would have went down, and our whole last decade and a half would have been so much different. I wouldn't look as old as I do, and I have to wear a hat, Jamie. But on a lighter note, Blythe Spartans, obviously remembered that time in 1996, and they let Graham Fenton go as their manager. 4 months ago. 4 months ago, they were like, "Nah, Graham, get out." But I can't believe it. That was I'm actually getting a bit of PTSD now thinking about that Blackburn game, because that was like, wasn't that the 88th? And I think it was the 88th and 90th minute or something. It was the last couple of minutes of the game.
It was. It was that late on.
Jesus Christ.
And it was at the point where you were thinking, we've won this, we're home and hosed, and then Jesus.
God.
Right.
I need some time.
Before Krisho starts weeping on the podcast, Jamie, and that's not why we brought you here at all. Let's try and cheer him up. I'm going to give you a couple of questions that might swing towards the lighter side of things, but you spoke to us a lot there about in terms of your work for the mag, and I'd love to hear about the future kind of plans. But before we get there, you said you've done a lot of different kind of media work. You mentioned Sky Sports. I'm sure you've done maybe stuff in and around the club that you've been lucky enough or fortunate enough to get involved in. Is there a particular, let's say, highlight or a piece of content or media or an encounter that stands out as like that was fucking cool.
Yeah. It's kind of the way it went down, really. But one does massively stand out. It was, let's get my head around this, end of the 2015 season. So the day of the game against West Ham, where Gutierrez scored, and we avoided relegation on the last day. So I'd spent that day doing a kind of blog for the BBC. I was at the game, and they just said if you the sort of live update thing that they have on their website, said if you can just send regular updates, pictures, etc. So I did that day. One brilliant, stayed up, and then gets a message off Keith Downey, Sky Sports, and he said, "Can you pop up to the ground in the morning and record a little bit about what happens next, how next season looks?" And I was like, "Absolutely, not a problem." I said, "You know what? I'm going out tomorrow, so I'll just call up, see you, and out I go." So I did. I went up, spoke to Keith for a bit, and it was pre-recorded, so it wasn't as intense. And it can never really tell you how it's going to be used because something could happen in the sports world and it just gets blasted off the pages. Or if it's a slow day, it could get used quite extensively. And as it turned out, this was a slow day. So I do this interview and I had this kind of bright blue Hollister hoodie on. And as I say, I was going out straight afterwards. I was going to a concert, actually. I was going to see the Foo Fighters at the Stadium of Light. So,
wow.
So, and I like you guys. I'm guessing you might not be familiar with getting in and out of Sunderland. It's a ball league. It is only 10 miles down the road, but the metro is a long ride. It's only one way in and out. And I met up with my pals and we said, "Come on, we're not football fans today. We're rockers. We're just going there as part of the crowd. Let's go and drink in Sunderland." So we did. We got the metro down to Sunderland, started having a few pints. And we walked into this Weatherspoons. And it was packed. And
I'm sorry. I am so hanging on
Edge of
to
my seat,
every word you say. I don't know where this is going.
well, so we walked in this busy Weatherspoons, right in the middle of Sunderland, you know. And it's got TV screens all around the wall with Sky Sports News on. And I just appear on every one of those screens. I've been after doing that thing where they just reuse my interview every hour because there wasn't much else going on.
Yeah.
And I've got this bright blue hoodie on. You probably can't tell from here, but I'm 6'4", stand out a bit. You know, dashingly good looking. I thought, oh shit, I'm on the telly in the middle of Sunderland talking about Newcastle United, and I get a tap on the shoulder, and I just thought, oh, well, the day's taking a turn for the worse. And it was just some guy who was a Newcastle fan who was there who wanted to just have a little chat with me. But I just thought, Jesus, let's go somewhere where the drinks are a bit more expensive and people might not take your heat, where they don't have Sky Sports News.
Oh, that's brilliant. Absolutely.
Wow.
I mean,
That's cool.
talk about put on display.
Yeah.
It's like, it's that guy.
Yeah, I wasn't getting away with that's not me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say you were lucky to come out of that one unscathed, but then you did tell us you are 6'4", so probably not that many lads are inclined to mess with you.
And a lot of the Mattons were confused about how the man from the little magic box in the corner was actually standing at the bar. I think they might have been after burning us at the stake.
Brilliant.
Oh, that is quality. Brilliant.
God.
That's one of the better anecdotes we've had on this show for
I
sure.
love it.
And then I suppose if we flip over then back to the mag again, Jamie. I'd love to one thing I'd love to hear is in terms of media or some of the content you've done or anyone you've met working with the club or ex-players. Is there anything that stands out from there? In terms of encounters you've had, or just a chance encounter, anyone you've bumped into through travels?
No, there was a great one. We got invited. Let's see now. you lose track of time, 2.5 years ago. It was 2021. Got invited. Kevin Keegan was doing a talking. A guy had opened a restaurant just up the road in Cramlington, and he was having Kevin Keegan there as opening night as a special guest, just to chat, no raffles, no bullshit, just Keegan doing the talking. And he wanted the mag to cover it. So he said, if you come along and cover it and do a write-up on it, you'll get a free meal, you'll get a meet and greet with Kevin. And I was like, oh, champion. And so this was on like a Wednesday night. And about 5 days previously, the takeover happened. So it took on a whole new edge to it all. This guy must have been like, can't believe me, look, I've got Kevin Keegan here. So I went along and Kevin did his thing, talking about his career and stuff. And I got a photo with him and stuck it straight on Twitter saying, I've just got a bit of a heads up on who the new owners are bringing in as sporting director. And it just blew up. I was looking at it like, I wouldn't realise that people are having this. And then afterwards, I like collared him for a bit and I said, look, Kevin, is it all right if I talk to you a little bit and about, I'm from the mag, I'm going to do a write-up on this. And he's like, no problem. And I said, would you like to be involved in the club? Can we get you involved somehow? And he said, well, I'm too old to do coaching and training. I'm not interested in that anymore. So what would I do? They need to come to me and tell me what they want me to do. And I think you would have him there as a motivator, as a deal breaker. If you've got a guy coming in this summer who's like that about whether to move to Newcastle United, and you bring Kevin Keegan in, he'll persuade him to move. He could sell Snow to.
Yeah.
Well, he did it though. Do you remember? Like, we actually had Warren Barton on this show a couple of months ago, and he was telling us about when he met Keegan in a hotel in London for the first time, and he'd mentioned he'd spoken to Arsenal and I think it was Sheffield Wednesday, even Blackburn thrown around, and Keegan just sat down in front of him and he said, "You want to come and join a big club?" And Warren Barton was like, "Sold." That's Kevin Keegan, Class.
There's an air about the man. There's an air that he carries, and I don't care who we are. You can make these guys feel 10 feet tall. But I used these quotes in the article, and I said, Keegan, Keegan would love to be involved if they can tell him what capacity it is. And the Sun nicked it and printed it. The Sun printed the whole story, and they credited the mag as the quotes and that. But I was thinking, Jesus, my picture's in the Sun, I would never have signed off on that.
Typical.
But yeah, just really up close and personal with Keegan. It's such a key time, such a lucky time.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Well, I mean, it was good that you were sober because it was 5 days after Cannes. the Cannes day. But it's like the timing, as you said, like for all that to happen just a couple of days before, and then you're suddenly face to face with Kevin Keegan. Wow, what a moment! That's class. Wow. We must look up some of those. Well, we're not going to look it up in the Sun. We will try and look it up in the archives of the mag. To get that article out, and we might even pop a link in the description below as well. Serious stories there, Jamie. Unbelievable. Thank you for sharing all of that as well, by the way.
Fantastic.
Just in terms of the mag itself, as it is now, I mean, it's a phenomenal website. The quality, the presentation, and obviously the written work that's up there. You've got, I mean, I'd love to ask you how many authors you have. I may be knocking on your door to see if you need another one, but that's for after the pod. But like in terms of the team that's there now, the number of authors you have and contributors, and I suppose the direction it's going. If you could tell us a little bit about that for our listeners.
Yeah, there's probably about a dozen core contributors, but there's infrequent contributors as well. You'd be more than welcome if you want to send something in. I think it's always good to get things from another perspective. Some guys write articles that are very similar, but I always try to make it that I've got something different to say, or shooting from a different perspective, and I think some people just send something in and Mark will always review it and publish it as long as, it's not offensive or anything like that. So always welcome for more contributors. Mark controls it all, Mark Jensen, who's edited it from its original launch. And he's in charge of the future direction and how long it's there. But, it does a job there in the Newcastle United interworld. And hopefully it'll continue to do that.
And do you feel that, you know, as we said, since that moment 2.5 years ago, whatever it was, the takeover, everything that's happened since the Eddie Howe here, are you feeling the same elevation in terms of, like, I mean, obviously you can look at traffic and things like that, but do you feel like, as you see the club going in this upward trajectory, do you feel like the same is happening, obviously, with the mag? Because I think that's probably the
Yeah,
consensus, right?
yeah, it is. It's happening in terms of numbers, I think, across the board. I do think when I see across the board, I mean in terms of the club as well, I think it can get so much bigger.
Mm.
If you have a look at, like, the one I always look at is Twitter followers. We've got something like a third of the Twitter followers of Tottenham. And if you get a couple more really successful years, and I mean, you know, if we were to win the Premier League, regularly participate in the Champions League, continue to expand, and I don't like putting it like this, but the brand, then I think, you know, if that grows 3 times, so does the Mag's audience, so does your guys' audience, so does every content creator and contributor's audience. I think this is the tip of the iceberg. It'd be really great, I think, to sort of connect everything up a little bit, and, you know, and have a network where the fans all interact. I always try to get involved as much as possible. But honestly, I think it can grow exponentially over the next 5 years, and I think it will. We touched on that announcement today about Anchorage. Hopefully that's things taking a turn in our favour.
Yeah, in particular, if we can, I don't know, overcome hurdles that are in some shape or form barriers to rapid progression, let's call it. But obviously, we also want to see the club make the right decisions and do things the right way as well. And so far, you know, there's no reason to not think that the board would do that right in the decisions that have been made. Unbelievable stuff. Thank you for sharing all that, Jamie. Just we are going to talk about one little topic before we let you go. But before I do that, and in case I forget, can you tell all our listeners where they can find you, where they can find the mag, where they should be looking up all this content we've discussed?
Yeah, as I said, we're online only at the moment, so it's www.themag.co.uk. You can follow me on X, formerly Twitter. I am Mr_Dolph, DOLF. And always happy to have a follower. I dab around a little bit, talk to some other podcasts and things, but I won't be giving them any coverage at your guys' expense.
We don't mind. We don't mind.
So yeah, I just find me at the Mag.
We're all friends. Ideal, brilliant stuff. Thanks for that. Dare we ask what Mr. DOLF actually means, or is that top secret information?
No, that's fine. I quite like getting it out there because it's one of many errors I've made in my life. So, as I said, I'm 6'4". I've had this spiky blonde hair my whole life. Used to do a little bit of boxing.
I see where this is going.
Some mates gave us a nickname of Dolph when I was younger, like Dolph Lundgren, who plays the Russian in Rocky IV. And it stuck with me through a lot of the sports teams I've played in and stuff. And nobody really uses it now. But when I set up all social media and stuff, that's always been my nickname, and I used it. And then Twitter's become this kind of cesspool that it is, where, you know, there's a lot of daggers being thrown around, and it's very, very close to adult. And I always hope people won't think that it's an abbreviation of that, because it was entirely my own decision to make it an F at the end when Dolph Lundgren spells it PH. I thought this will save us a bit of time across life.
It's cheaper to put it on the back of a shirt with only 4 characters. Excellent. Thank you for sharing all of that. The trade secrets from the horse's mouth here on the Irish Mag Show. Okay, lads. I want to do 2 things before we go. We did promise we would have a quick chat about best value signings in Newcastle history. And it's something we'll probably return to as well. But all of you, I did mention this to all of you, have a little think about this. And what I'd love to actually do is we might just go around the house and hear you nominate who you think is, quite simply, Newcastle's best value signing, right? Now, it would be easy to say something like, well, Shearer was great value at 15 million, right? But the reality, as we all know, well, we like to think we do, is that 15 million in the mid-90s was a lot different to what 15 million is now, right? I think it was it Kieran Maguire that came out and said it probably would come close to like 180 million or something like that in today's money. So if you just think about that scale, that's insane. So what we really want to think about is like absolute value for money, either in terms of like impact they made, surprise factor, or potentially even resale, right? And we might just go around the house and see what you've got, lads. And Jamie, we'll give you a little breather if you want to grab a bit of water, because we've really interrogated you there. Alan, I'm going to come to you first. Who would be your nomination for Newcastle United's best value signing for what we're saying is like the last 30 years, ultimately the Premier League era?
So we have had quite a few good like signings, but I'm going to go with Moussa Sissoko because we pulled him in for £2 million. He did a serious job for us. He didn't down tools, but he was, I hate saying this with Paul here, he was typically French. When things didn't go his way, he kind of went, well, that's the end of that. I'm not going along with this. But we managed to sell him to Spurs for £36 million. He had one good season with Spurs and then stank the place out. So I think he was sold at the correct time, brought in at a great price, and sold for an even better one. So he's my shout.
Alan, if you were in the football manager world, as you and I have discussed many times, that would be good business in football manager. What's happening in real life. Yes. It's hard to argue with that. There's a lot going on there. Obviously, there was the impact of performance, the quality player, but as we said, that resale that's huge. Krisho.
Yeah.
How are you doing there?
I'm all right. I was just working through all my fantastic notes here. I would have said Andy Cole for $2.5 million, but that was in 1993, and I've just worked it out through I don't use calculators, I use my own brain.
An abacus.
It's 55 million pounds, that is, in today's money. That's how much Andy Cole cost in 1993. So I'm going to go and stick French here. We were making killings in the French market. Johan Cabaye, not only was he one of the best midfielders I've ever seen, the fact that he cost £4 million, we sold him for 22.5 million. But the amount of the goals he scored, how important the goals he scored, the assists he made, his free kick taking, his corner taking, his whole contribution right across the board, it was a steal to get Johan Cabaye. And he's still, I believe, very much a Geordie fan and a Geordie boy. So, yeah, Johan Cabaye was a steal of £4 million in 2000.
That's a decent shout indeed. Okay, so we've had Moussa Sissoko, we've had Johan Cabaye. Jamie, have you got someone in mind?
Yeah, a few names have flown through my head. Honourable mention for the current player that I think would get this award if it was getting given in that way, which would be Fabian Schär, who has been an incredible player for an absolute steal. But I can't look at anybody other than Robert Lee. £700,000. A key part of getting a team that was almost relegated there to winning the championship, and then stayed at the club for 10 years and became one of the best midfielders in England. To buy a player that was playing in the championship and turn him into that, and part of so many brilliant teams, part of the brilliant Keegan team, part of the brilliant Robson team, absolute outstanding player for this club. And it's probably there or thereabouts in most people's lists, but I can't look past the obvious. Rob Lee.
Fantastic.
Another shout.
I think it's a very fair shout. A player who, like, do you know there was that era? Now this gives us great satisfaction as Irish football fans, Jamie. But there was an era where England just didn't do great on the old international stage, and in particular where they missed out on that World Cup '94, where we had a great time. And I feel like Rob Lee was in there at that time as well. Do you know, just like maybe wrong place, wrong time kind of thing, or right place, wrong time, however you want to describe it. I think he was at Euro '96 with England as well, but obviously has some competition for places. But an unbelievable midfielder in every shape of the word. So it's hard to disagree with that. Right, I'll give you my own nomination. And again, I was trying to get my head around the money element of this. And I can't get away from Shay Given.
Yes.
We signed Shay Given, I think it was about 1997, from Blackburn. Now, we don't need to mention that he did have a very short stint over at the Stadium
or
Roker Park, as it was back then.
He got lost.
But in Euro, the fee I found in euros is about 2 million, but we're looking at kind of just north of £1 million, maybe £1.5 million, whatever it was at the time. And yeah, that wouldn't be super cheap now. But if you think about if you were to buy a Premier League top class goalkeeper now, right, you probably wouldn't get anything for less than 30, 40 million. You know, if you're really looking like a top class. And Shay Given, let's face it was part of many different versions of Newcastle United with many different defences and centre back pairings and defenders in front of him. And, you know, there used to be a bit of a thing about, okay, his kicking wasn't fantastic, but that was at a time where it didn't need to be. His shot stopping was second to none. His communication with the lads around him. And as I said, you know, it's easy to be an outstanding goalkeeper. And no disrespect against the likes of Ederson or Allison or whatever, but like when you've got a certain caliber of centre back or defender in front of you, plus midfield and so on. But as I said, you know, Shay Given did it for Ireland, did it for Newcastle with, you know, gaps in defences in front of him, and made ridiculous amount of not only appearances for Newcastle and Ireland, but also saves, and kept us in many, many, many games. And yeah, at that price, I just think that was a serious signing and some vision for what is not an obvious, unbelievable goalkeeper, not the tallest, as we said, but just one of the most consistent keepers you could have found. And the longevity of that man's career, we'll tell him all about it when we get him on the Irish Mag show.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've given with
He'd
Sissoko.
come on, wouldn't he?
He will. We'll get him.
Claiming it.
Yeah. He's been. We'll have you know, Jamie. He's been cornered in Dublin Airport a few times.
A few times.
Has he?
Absolutely.
Is that in relation
before
to the
nominations we've
podcast,
had.
or-
Many
Bit of
things. Many things. Yeah. Including one of his highlights, or one of my personal highlights, where he was eating his dinner when he was on. I think he was on Sky, and it was like a flash cam in between, and he didn't even react. He was like, "No, I'm finishing this steak." What a man. Okay, so we've had Sissoko, we had Cabaye, we had Robley, and we had Shay Given, lads. That's not bad. We're not gonna go and pick one. I think they're 4 great nominations. And you know, Jamie, you mentioned Fabian Schär. I think I've got a couple others in front of me. Tiote was a steal at €4 million, I think it was at the time. Solana was about 4 million, or maybe £3 million at the time. Demba Ba, we were talking about it before recording, was like 800,000. Some serious signings, you know, back in the day. And even IOC Perez, lads, was 2 million.
Yeah,
2 million. Sold for 35.
Sold for
Another great
35
sale.
to Leicester. Yeah. Insane. So it's a great topic. And listeners, anyone out there, feel free to give us your own suggestions. Put it in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube. And as usual, give us the old like and subscribe for the Irish Mag Show, which we, of course, love to see every week. Lads, I'm conscious it's quite late in the day. Poor old Jamie's definitely knacker tired, having played football and then put up with a couple of Irish lads for the last hour or so. But Jamie, I just have to say thanks again for joining us on the show. We didn't yet get to turn our attention to Burnley. So again, we might just do a quick round the house. Like, you know, as far as I know, and you can keep me honest, lads, doesn't look like we might have anyone fresh faces back. Maybe a fresher Callum Wilson. There's been whispers of Trippier.
Trippier's out.
Not sure.
He's dipped off to Dubai. There was a rumor today that Joe Linton could be back. That would be massive. But I don't think.
Jamie, have you your finger on the pulse on any of this from the Mag's perspective?
I've heard Almiron maybe back.
Ooh.
Okay.
And because I'm kind of in 2 minds. I think Joe Linton may want to try and get in a Brazil squad, but I'm starting to wonder about Nick Pope, whether you better just both Nick Pope and Joe Linton just let them heal this season, you know.
Yeah.
It's tough, like, especially on Nick Pope would obviously be looking at that Euros thing. Obviously Pickford is probably, like, you know, guaranteed to be the starter, but the other options are quite limited, let's say, in terms of second and third choice keepers. So that's tough to take as well when he's been great for us when he was obviously playing right. Okay, so if we were to see someone come back, it would be a great boost. But even, you know, to look at the bench we had against Sheffield United, right? You had Harvey Barnes on the bench and Callum Wilson on the bench. It just makes you feel a lot better about life. And Jamie, I'll come to you, seeing as you are our esteemed guest. This is Burnley away. I don't know if you've ever been to Turf Moor. It's a tough place to go, I think, for many reasons. But do you feel like we might walk away with a victory there, and how much that 3 points would mean to us? Not only them, but us as well.
Yeah, I have been to Turf Moor. It's horrible, and I'm going on Saturday. So I really hope it turns out well, because we spoke earlier about very long trips home from that part of the world. I don't want another one. But I was supremely confident about this a few weeks ago, but Burnley have turned it around a bit, and they're maybe 2 points, I think, away from safety. But I think the big galvanising factor is they're going to have to try and win this game. They can't do the trick where they just sit deep, and we've got that pace on the counter. I think we'll sting them a couple of times, and I think we'll win well. I think 2-3-0.
Nice. I like the sound of that. Alan, do you concur?
I would like to think exactly what's going to happen. They'll have to come out with us like a gang of lunatics looking for goals, and we will catch them on the break early, and it'll be 1 or 2-0 at half time, and their heads will just drop. But I would take a point. If it was offered to me right now, guaranteed that I can get out of there with a point, I'd probably take it. Because when teams are fighting for their life, they're just different animals. So we're going to win 2-1, and that's what I'm going with.
Okay. Chris Shaw.
I saw them play against Man United last week, and like Alan was saying, they're fighting for their lives. They're quick on the attack. They created some good chances. Frankly, they should have won that game. They should have been 2-0 up before Man Red scored. But as long as we don't play an underfit Shar, and as long as Longstaff puts his glasses on, so he actually sees where the ball is and starts playing properly again in midfield, I honestly believe that we'll be 2-0 up by halftime, and they might get a goal back, make it a bit tense in 60th minute. We'll smash them away again. It'll be 3-1. Quite comfortable.
Okay, yeah. You mentioned the one thing I had in my mind was Fabian Schär. I haven't heard too much. Jamie, I don't know if you've picked up anything on the Fabian Schär situation. Like, are we expecting him to be fully fit against Burnley or not?
I haven't heard. But what I would say is he gets banjoed every week, doesn't he? He goes off.
Yeah. He does, yeah.
And then
he turns up a week later. Yeah.
He's like Happy Gilmore, isn't he? Just 10 weeks till the hockey chance.
Yeah, that's fair to say. And there was another game previously earlier in the season where we thought he was gone, and he just showed up a week later and played class. So the way I'm looking at it is if we have a fit Fabian Schär playing, I think we win, and we win comfortably, potentially like a 3-0 or maybe a 3-1, because this is a team that has a lot on the line, and we've seen what they can do against big teams. So, but yeah, I think Fabian Schär's fitness is a key factor, especially knowing we don't.
I wonder if do you think it's kind of like the picture of Dorian Gray, and every time Fabian Schär gets injured, it doesn't affect him; it affects somebody else in the team.
He just gives it to somebody else.
He stays beautiful looking, and the portrait takes all the damage. The rest of the team.
Fabian Schär is the Dorian Gray of Newcastle United. You heard it here first, folks.
Fantastic.
May the man live forever, because he's been brilliant for us. And as we said, one of, if not the best value signing we've ever made at that lovely price of $3.5 million. Well, on that bombshell, I am going to bring this podcast to a close, lads. What a day, what an evening it's been. Thank you so much again to Jamie for joining us. As we said, you'll have all the links for Jamie and for the mag in the description below, as well as the links to all of our socials as well. We will be back next week, as usual, for more Irish Magnus. So until then, all we can say is, how are the lads, slán go fóill, and we shall see you all next week. Say goodbye, gentlemen, and thank you again, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks for having me.
Slán a bhaile.
Cheers, guys.
Slán.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.